All right, so welcome everybody. We are here with Ardelia, and she's going to share a little bit about herself, her projector journey, and her experience with the creative coaching certification, which she is now pretty much done with level 3 and about to start level 4. So, Ardelia, thank you so much for sharing your journey. So, start wherever you want.
So I guess I'll tell everybody what my design is. So I'm a 1-3 self-projected projector. I just have the throat and the G center defined. And I started learning about human design in the end of 2017. After I had like kind of a business catastrophe, in that I had planned and executed a launch for a mastermind flawlessly, but it didn't work at all. Like, I knew all the strategies and it didn't work. And my managing mentor looked at me and she said, if I would have done what you had done, I would have had incredibly different results. Like, I would have nailed everything. And then she said, by the way, you're a human design projector. I don't really understand what that means, but here, go investigate. And, being that 1-3 profile, I was like, oh, okay. And I was at the end of everything. I was like, I really needed this launch to work and it didn't. I know I have stuff to share. What's going on? So I learned through books, really. The first probably 3 to 4 years, I learned through books. I really, I really put my profile to the test. I would read about the defined centers and the undefined centers, and then I would apply that to my life. And I was also looking for just information on projectors in general, and I didn't find a lot back in like 2018. And I was like, what? There's nothing out here outside of just like wait for the invitation. But then I was like, what does that look like? How does that work? What are like the steps? I want to process. I like processes. So I created my That Projector Live podcast just really as a way for me to talk about what I was learning and to process it. And the more that I learned about myself, the more I realized that my podcast is really a platform for me to figure myself out in a very kind of messy, collective sharing way. And that's where your certification comes in, because it has added so much to my journey. So, when I started, I think I started level 2 with you in the live class. And that was kind of like the introduction to circuitry. And that added so much for me. I was able to really finally see how all the energy in the chart connected and how it all interacted with each other. So I was able to really begin to see the big picture. And then when we moved into level 3, just adding that extra layer, going into the gates and the channels specifically, and really like being with the energy of each of them, I had so many ahas just about my chart and about my family's charts, my children's charts. And it was that aha that it was just like, this is absolutely incredible. And it was just so cool, especially as that self-projected projector, where my identity is a huge part of this, to look at my chart and to like just have that deeper understanding of me. It's like, oh, that is me. This all makes sense. So
So
that's
awesome. And Ardelia, she really knew a lot. And you did level 1 on your own
mhm.
because you're like, oh, I'm an investigator and you love to, study like me. I'm an investigator. So we love to do our own thing. But there's something so magical when you come together in a group and everybody's sort of holding that space. And like we even have this process because we have a lot of mutants in there. And we even have this process where, Ardelia is a collective share. She's collective. She's here to share. And she does this in her podcast. And I think a couple of us were like going on Google and searching for some type of like human design something. And her podcast is like popping up. And this is the recognition over time through the sharing. She did that without she started that without any certification because that's what she's actually here to do. And wasn't somebody was like, oh, you need to get certified if you're going to do a podcast or something like that. She really didn't need to, because she was already doing so much investigation. But the good news is that it does add when you go through the journey and you go through the process step by step. And I just know because of my own journey, I know how much it served me. And then having that group together to kind of unravel all these other aspects is really so profound. And so many people had these like, oh, wow, this is my chart in a group. And then also seeing how other people explain, it's really just very experiential in the way. And this particular group, it was really, really amazing. So, yeah. So, what was that journey for you, being that you have no tribal? She's all collective. And, the self projector does feel a little individual, even though you don't have the individual circuitry, because self projected is all about your identity, who you are, and being a projector is very individual. So it's kind of has a little bit of that flavor. But she has absolutely no tribal, which is important, which is big for projector, because the circuitry defines a projector more than in other types. So what was that journey like for you? I have a lot of new people coming in that are real mutiny. Mutiny.
It was really, I guess validating, really. Um, when I began to learn about the circuitry, so I am 100% collective. So both my channels are collective, but my sun and my earth are in individual gates. My personality sun and earth are in individual gates. My design sun and earth are in collective gates. So I love individual energy, but I also love collective energy. But then the tribe, sometimes it makes me uncomfortable. And it has taken me up until this, level 3 to really be able to fully understand why I don't consider myself a joiner, why every time someone's like, join our group, join our small group, join this, I was like, please God, no, stay away from me, because I don't have that tribal energy. But being in the group, especially that particular group where we did have people with tribal energy, there was just that understanding of like, you know what? Sometimes, even if you do have tribal energy, you just have to go off and like be on your own for a little. And I did need to have a few classes where I was just like, I just need to go and be on my own for a little. And then I was able to come right back. And it was incredible. Everyone was like, we missed you so much. And I was like, me? You noticed that I was gone? What? But that was just amazing that people actually noticed that I was gone, and that, there was that connection, even though I'm not tribal. Um, it was really awesome. And then to hear everybody share their experiences as well, because when you are someone who lacks tribal circuitry, you feel so lonely sometimes. And that loneliness can be really all consuming, and you're like, nobody else gets it, nobody else understands. And then when I came back to the group and I shared that, both the ladies who were there were like, no, we see you, we get it, we're in that same boat. And it was like, wow, it was just that connection that existed kind of outside of the tribe while simultaneously in the tribe.
Yep, that's exactly it. It's like we're outside, but we see each other and we hold for the outsider. And then that makes you feel apart while still maintaining your separateness. And it's like it's just such a great feeling to have that. And the self-projected projector is also very rare. It's very rare. So I would love to hear also like how you've been unraveling, because you came from the launch. So the launch is like, and that's exactly what happened to me too, by the way. I was like having all these launches, like hustling way more than anyone else. And then I'm like, that they have these results, I don't. So what's wrong with me? Like that's the first thought. You're like, what's wrong with me? Then you find out you're a projector and you're like, oh my God, it all makes so much sense, right? Then there's like the unraveling process of like, and how do we unravel it? And also share with everybody what your kids type in inner authority, because she has the best family dynamics ever. Like so much fun. Her queen manifester that's your oldest, right? She's
Mhm.
like she's 7, right? Okay.
She's 9.
Oh, she's 9. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have 2 little girls. I have a 9-year-old manifester with that 4521 channel. And then I have, and they're both emotional. So my manifester is emotional, and then my generator is also emotional. And both my babies have defined willpower, which is something that I do not have. And it has been really interesting to understand finally the energy dynamics at play. And my awareness of what is going on has enabled me to really have the language to help, especially my manifestor, bless her heart, to help her understand how to work with that channel. I remember when we talked about the 4521, I was almost in tears. I was like, there is a reason why my child is like this. Oh my gosh. And just having the language to understand what is going on with her was just, it was life-saving, really. And then, knowing that channel and how those gates play out, I can bring her attention to that and kind of push her more into that tribal nature instead of the I, me nature.
Yeah. So that was so much fun looking at Eloine's chart. Like, oh my God, like that is it's such an interesting, she's got a lot of interesting stuff going on in her chart. And so the funny thing is when you're a projector mom, so this is also a big thing, right? So projector mom. So how has that been through the self-projected projector and kind of establishing your role as the leader? Because Ardelia also has a lot of leadership. She is the leader. She's not the queen. But so, and the self-projector is, you really are leading, and the projectors are guiding other people, but she has a starter in the family. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the self-projector and also how you're holding that in the family dynamic, because I love your journey with these two is so fun to watch.
Yeah. So when I found out that I was a self-projected projector and that it was really about who I was, the more that I reflected on it, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I carry my definition in my design. So it's in my body, my unconscious. And not in my mind, which made so much sense. That also was a game changer because I cannot mentally define myself. I have spent so much time trying to put together like an aesthetic or a style for myself, and I can't do it. But I can go into a store and be like, that dress, that one right there, that is for me. And then it's like, that's all I buy that day because that is the only thing that resonates with my authority. And it's taken me, until this point to realize that. But also I take my direction from what feels correct. And sometimes like I'm just kind of coming out of this phase where nothing feels correct.
Mhm.
And that, it is so frustrating to be in that spot, but to just kind of tread water and maintain, to do what I need to do. And then I'm not going to make any actual like decisions or movement until I get that clarity that I need to move forward again. Um, and then one of the things I've also realized, thanks to your certification and the time that we spent together, is the most powerful sentence for me is just I am, or I am me. And I realize like from the outside, it doesn't sound like it actually means much. Like you are you, what? But to me, as a self-projected projector, it means so much because I am me. And that is it. I don't need to say anything more. Okay, so for the family, I get excited. So in the family, it has been a challenge because we have so many different energy dynamics. My manifestor has an undefined G center. My husband has an undefined G center. My generator and I are the ones that have a defined G. And so for me, I really try my best to be how I want my children to be. And then partly because of, I guess, who I am, I also call out my manifestor and I'm like, hey, do you realize that this is what you're doing right now? I want you to recognize that. And I have learned through trial and error that my manifestor is more receptive to correction when she's not angry. So
Oh, good insight, right? Yeah.
yeah. So she gets angry. We had an incident last night where my manifestor is trying to use her little sister as an example. And my generator saying, I don't want you to use me as an example. Please don't. And my manifestor just cut her off. She's like, nope. And she just got so mad. And it's like, okay, we're going to have to talk about this later after you've calmed down because we can't we can't do that. You know, your sister trying to tell you something, you got to listen.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, the parenting thing is so huge. And you know what? My friends who are not into human design, they're now reaching out because like their schools put something out in the newsletter. Like, oh, have you looked at your kids' human design charts? Because it's a real, so it's becoming more mainstream so that people can start now reaching out. Oh, yeah, my weird friend Raquel, she does all this weird stuff. Like, oh, I heard about human design through my school, and everyone. So I've always really been encouraging Ardelia to keep adding that because I don't have kids. She has kids that she's can really support, like seeing it with the kids in real time, how the parenting is going, really, really huge. And really important because I think, human design is designed for the younger generation. Like we're here to bring it forward for them. And when you bring those tools, there's something called positive conditioning. We're always deconditioning from everything we got that made us the opposite of what we're designed to be. So with Ardelia's self-projection, her G is positively conditioning as she's parenting, and that is freaking huge. It changes the entire dynamic of generational trauma that we're all unraveling. So really, really cool. And I'm going to have a link for your podcast in the description. So is there anything else you want to share about your podcast, about your journey, and anything else to kind of wrap things up?
So I always like to say I'm very much a process oriented person in that I like to have step 1 and step 2 and step 3. But at the same time, I want everybody to understand that this journey is not linear. And I feel like that's the beautiful combination of both of my channels. I like to have that process, but at the same time, we may not follow that process in a linear fashion because it's not a linear journey.
I love that because she's logic and abstract. So that's the merging of the two. It's like, yeah, step by step, but also there's this abstract process. And so those two things are really, really important because so many people are stuck in the logical mind. And so it's really important to understand how the logic is going to fit in this new way of being in this new 2027. We need to understand it because it's another 400-year process. So for 100 years, we're still going to be unraveling how do we use the logic, but now in a new way of through the individual. And so that what she just said is exactly what we need to know. So she nailed it. Nailed it. Awesome. Okay, so Ardelia, thank you so much for sharing. And I wanted to have this time to sit down with you, and I'm just grateful to just connect with you. And I love, love, love sharing this journey with you. Like, I love all of your insights. I love the way you share. I love the way you weave that logic and the abstract. And I freaking love watching your kids too, and the stories that come from that. The best, the best. So, thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me and for just creating that space for all those transformations to take place. It was incredible.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And again, I'll put the link to her podcast if you want to check it out and see her beautiful way of bringing all the information together. I'll have that in the description below.